All right, everyone, it's Kate here with Mama's Making Commas, and today we have a special guest, Sally. And first, I'm just going to start with, have you ever worked your entire life to build the life you thought you wanted, and then one day realized you don't actually feel like yourself anymore? Today, we're going to talk about high-performing women in midlife, women who did everything right, the career, the income, the responsibilities, the people counting on them, but somewhere along the way, they
Hmm.
disappeared inside those roles. So if you've ever felt tired but not physically tired, successful but not fulfilled, or like you're living a life that you built but didn't actually choose, this episode is going to be for you. So, Sally, you have actually lived this, and instead of pushing harder, you made a pivot that most women are secretly thinking about but scared to say out loud. So, welcome to the
Yes.
show. I'd love
Thank you, Kate.
to kind of dive into before you got to where you are today. What did
Mhm.
your life look like on paper?
It looked amazing. I was having the time of my life. I was very successful in business, and I was very successful in pivoting from business to business to business over my career. I initially started out as designing clothing lines for clothing companies. That's what I studied in university, and then I went on to do that. But over time, it got to the point that it wasn't really a lot of growth anymore. And so my husband and I have also moved all over the country following either his jobs or my jobs. And so what I found was that when there was a season that I really wasn't feeling comfortable in a career, I was okay with letting it go and exploring something new. And
Mm.
I did that pivot 4 or 5 times really well. And
And
so,
every time you did the pivot, because I do think that sometimes people are like, oh, I've already pivoted like twice, like, or am I going to look flaky or anything? Did you ever feel that way through those pivots, or like, did it always work out?
well, I always got to a point where it was like, okay, this isn't the right thing for me.
Hmm.
So what do I need to do next? And so I was always one that would attract something new. I'm one of those gals, but I would find something new and I would go after it and I would get it. And so an example was when I left the clothing buyer business. I mean, I was traveling the world, I was creating lines for menswear, I was having so much fun. Um, and it was a great career. And I went to a couple of different companies for that, but eventually it got to the point where it's just, this isn't right for me anymore. And I knew it. And so I needed to make a shift. And that was around probably 20 some odd years ago that I made that first big shift from that, maybe even longer. But it was such a door opening for me when I looked beyond what I had already achieved and said, what is the next thing for me?
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of women out there and men that are afraid to make a pivot because they don't know what's next.
Mm.
So I got married to my second husband a little later in life, and we had our son when we were 40. And so we had moved because of my husband's work, and I didn't have a job at that point. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do some stuff from home. I did a little bit of stuff and network marketing and so on. But then there was a company that opened up in town and they were looking for all sorts of people. And I was referring all my friends, like, it's a technical contact center. You'll be great at that kind of thing. You're all about the computer stuff. Well, turns out I decided to apply after a while, and I went in to teach and coach all of the leaders.
Mm.
And it was within about 2 years that I was actually the director of the organization with 1,600 people working for me
Wow. Wow.
um, in a small town in BC, like real small
What
town.
a great though, what a great thing for that town, for their economy.
It was fabulous. It was a fabulous opportunity for people for to have that many people in one facility, and we did really, really well. We hit worldwide customer service results, etc. But it was a whole shift for me from what I had done to what I was doing. But the one thing that I recognized in that was that we always carry a skill set and a mindset that allows us to see what's that opportunity, how can I work it best to my ability, and be
Mm.
open to learning. And I started out in this management, then I went to the quality control department, and then I went to the training department, and then I became the boss. Um, and it was so much fun because I was strategically using my brain, getting to that point that I never thought I would be at, managing this big center in this small town. Um, but it was so enriching for me
Mm.
because I got to step to different levels of my performance and my growth. And then it came a time. Sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I'm just gonna make sure that people caught that because I think I've been hearing more and more of exactly what you just shared, which is you were having fun. Okay, so like we just had the
Yeah.
Olympics and it talked about the skater, right? And she was just having so much fun. She wasn't the best, but she was having fun and joy, and
Hmm.
so she won, right? And
Yeah.
then there was the freestyle skier, and she shared how it's about her mindset, and she's always trying to be her best and learn and get better. And you
Hmm.
did both of those things. And potentially, some people I do find we hold ourselves back because we don't want to break the mold of
Hmm.
being proud of our success or allowing ourselves the ability to grow and flourish. And
Yeah.
so, if you're having fun and you're willing to like just grow, it
Yes.
sounds like that was a big part of your success. And I just want to tie that back because I think there is this new shift and this new wave of like you don't have to be humble and quiet and meek, like you can
Hmm. Yeah.
grow and soar. And so I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the listeners heard that loud and
Yeah.
clear. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No, that's good
I think it
because
was really, really important part of
it
your
is important to love what you're doing, right?
journey.
And I've been in positions where, and I'll get to that later, where I haven't really enjoyed it at a certain point, and I
Hmm.
knew that it was time for me to make a shift. And whenever I've felt that way, it's a sign that this isn't right for me now, and I'm ready to take that next step. That next expansion is waiting for me. And that's what
Mm,
I think a lot of people hold themselves back from. They think, oh, yeah, it's just now. It's like, oh, I'll just accept the job the way it is now. I know that it's changed and I have to make the money, etc. Every
mm,
time I made that shift, my money exponentially went higher, so much higher than I ever imagined it would. Right.
mm,
And so another opportunity that I had that came up after that, because we ended up moving again. I left that organization. And then I was looking at a couple of organizations to go back and do things that were still around that same theme as what I was working in a contact center, but in with fashion.
mm,
Perfect connection. But there was something about it that wasn't sitting well with me when I was
mm,
going through the interview process because I thought, oh, this is a perfect match. My son was little. It would be a long commute for me. My husband was working weird hours at nighttime at the airport in Toronto. And so I said to myself, you know what? I'm not willing to give up my time with my son
mm,
for a job. So I turned down an amazing opportunity to run their whole call center at this big company and never regretted 1 minute of that
mm.
because I knew what I was worthy of receiving and I could design my life.
Ooh, I love
Right?
that. Yeah.
My son had moved around with us a bit already. He was only in like grade 1 or 2 when we moved across the country. But I knew that there was something that I needed to do to protect that relationship as much and his spirit as much as it was for me to get this other job. So I turned it down. So what happened next was an opportunity came up with a financial services company back in British Columbia. We were in Ontario at the time, moving back to BC. And I thought, this is interesting. And I was offered an opportunity to go to BC for their AGM, their annual general meeting. Just basically an interview to go back there.
Hmm.
And this is where it gets really cool. This is where some I call sort of manifestation for me. I decided to stop at and make an appointment at the local branch and ask them some questions about the position before I went for the interview.
Mm,
Smart business idea. I did that. And then when I showed up at the actual AGM, I was told later on by the guy that was running it that the local candidate didn't show up. I flew across the country,
mm,
showed up, but what was really cool was because of the contact center business I had been in, I had been part of Rotary.
mm.
And guess who was one of their advisors on the team there? A
Oh,
Rotarian that knew me and the expertise that I'd had in this other position.
right.
Got the job like that.
Yeah.
That now became my next career in financial services. And I became a manager in that and eventually um, moved quite high up in the organization. Moved around the country a little bit again with that company, primarily because of my husband moving. Ended up in Kelowna, BC, not such a bad place to end up.
No, not at all.
And I was able to really work that business and create a lot of success and we had a fabulous team, one of the top teams in Canada. And so each time I'm having to learn a whole new business structure and how
Hmm.
it works. But the skill set comes with you from a leadership, from a management, from, you know, coaching, etc. And so that's the thing I want people to understand is that when you make a shift, that the next one will always have things in it that you've already done.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be fearful.
Yeah. You're not
Right?
starting from zero, right? You're starting with
Yeah,
experience. Absolutely.
exactly.
But you kind of hit on to starting at 40 with your son, right? And a lot of these shifts happened in your 40s from I'm just kind of
Yep. Yep.
keeping with the timeline
So
here.
my buyer jobs were in my 20s and 30s, and then I
Yeah.
moved into the higher income ones when I was in my 40s. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, I'm 41. So I'm like,
Good.
you're giving me hope.
The
I
best
saw
is
a
yet
reel
to
today.
come.
I saw a reel today and it was like, most women to make a career shift at 39 and become an entrepreneur at like 42 and have, success at 49 or something like
Hmm.
it was just averages. But why do you think there is that shift? Because I am seeing more and more
Yep.
trends of people being like, peace out. I'm done, you know?
Yep.
Um, and making that shift, is it like a midlife crisis or is it that they're just burnt out? Or what do you think it is that's like a catalyst, or do you have even like an
Yep.
idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I work with a lot of women that are at that
Hmm.
stage and beyond. And what I found is that because when we first started in our careers, we're usually excited about it and it's something new and it's sparkly. And then we get our family all, we get married, we have kids, we do those types of things. And then all of a sudden, we find that we're stagnant. We're not
Mm.
learning, we're not growing. And we don't know that when we're in the job. We're just thinking about, oh, yeah, I'm getting a promotion or I'm getting some more money or this and that. But we get stagnant in where we are. We're kind of stuck. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? I think about yourself from 20 to 25 to 30 to 35 to 40, how much you grow and change. And you're raising kids now, and your kids are getting older, and so on. I was a late bloomer. But there's so much more that we can do, and we've learned so much just from experience in our life, whether it's personal life and communication with people, or whether it's business and what we would really truly like to do and what's going to fulfill us. And we stop just accepting what we've always had. And we're like,
Hmm.
there's got to be more.
There's got to be more.
There's
Yeah.
got to
I
be
think
more.
there's like that nudge, and I always called it the 2-year itch in
Yeah.
corporate. I'd have the 2-year itch and be like, all right, I'm spending my time looking for jobs while I'm at
Yeah.
work. Like that was my sign, personally. And I always realized like it doesn't matter what I do. Like I always would have success. Like, and that gave
Hmm.
confidence.
Yep.
It's like, if you're filling it with your heart and it like feels right and you give it
Hmm.
100%, like you're gonna have success. Like your
Yeah.
mindset is part of it too. But, there is always like that hesitancy, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't know if it's um society, like what are you doing? Like I remember one person be like,
Hmm. People
you're
are
gonna
always
leave
going to
all of
question.
this for like a vertical marketing thing. Like, is that even
Yeah.
sustainable? I'm like watch me, all right, even more fuel for my fire.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but at the same time, like it does put doubt, right? And there's lots of people who are gonna layer doubt on you,
Yeah.
layer their opinions on you. And
Mm.
so how, like, do you have a tip for a woman right now who's like, not one person's in their corner saying like, you can do this, and if you do this, like, and it doesn't work out, like, it's okay, you're gonna be fine. Like, what would you like to say to that person right now who's like, I want to be Sally. I want to be Sally.
I would just say, believe the only thing that matters is your belief in yourself. People will adjust around you, but it's no one's right to judge what's right for you.
Mm,
And I've always been judged in my life. I've been judged because I'm a female. I've been judged because I'm a leader. I've been judged because I know what I'm doing.
mm,
I've been judged because people haven't liked how I've worked with them because they weren't ready to expand, right?
mm,
People saw me move up fast in a corporate world and questioned whether I was even worthy of being there, but I always knew I was. And whoever was promoting me knew I was. Right? So the biggest thing for me is having that belief in yourself and knowing that everybody else gets to have their own story. Like I'm judged a lot by a lot of people because I've moved all these different places around the country. Like every 2 years, we're moving somewhere, right? Because we were following the jobs, but we wanted our family to be together. But they judge me based off of that. And it's like, oh, well, it's not your life. This is mine. This is my life. I get to choose how I live my life, and I want to live it to the fullest.
I love that. I also love that your spouse was very supportive. Like it seemed like you
Hmm.
guys worked together to advance both of your careers. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a you versus him, or was there some give and take in that too? Because I think that's also sometimes a challenge.
We were both working hard. He started a whole new career at 40 as well. He went and studied again at university and became an aircraft maintenance engineer and had to start at the bottom of the level and work his way up. And right now he's actually in another province. He's been there for 2 months. I went to visit him a couple of weeks ago. He's coming home this weekend. But he was, the money's too good. Well,
Yeah.
and I'm skilled at it. I still can work. Well, why don't I go? And I
Yeah.
said, perfect. If you want to go, go.
Yeah.
Because that's his choice, and I have to support that if that's what he wants to do to make
Mhm.
himself feel fulfilled.
And
Because
it's not him choosing work over you.
no,
I think that's important too to identify. Like, it's okay for him to do that, but it's also okay for a woman to do that too.
yeah,
Right. And I
absolutely.
think, when I look back through my 30s, I think of how many times I did things to like serve other people.
Hmm.
And, what I'm finding looking back and talking to others, like it's very natural for us to be like, okay, well, I'll deal with my stuff later, or I'll put myself later, or yeah, like, when the kids are
Yeah,
this age, then I'll do this.
yeah,
And you know what? It's okay for you to say, hey, this is important to me. Like my
yeah,
happiness is important to then show my kids that their happiness is also
yes.
important. So I love that you did that. So now, like, tell us where you're at now and like, what is Sal like, who is Sally now? And yeah, like, tell
But
us a
I
little
want
bit.
to tell you one thing about how I got to where I am today,
Sure. Yeah.
because it's a big thing for women. And when I was in the financial services business, my husband and I had actually moved from Kelowna out to Quebec for his role. So we bought a house there and we were in French speaking Quebec. We're not French speakers. We happened to go when it was around COVID time, just before COVID time, and that kind of thing. So there was all sorts of things happening. But my branch in Kelowna allowed me to work remote before remote was the thing. Um, but then it got to a point where I could see that the changes were happening in that industry and what our corporation was doing, and it was getting really backwards, in my opinion. But I was worried that I wouldn't have a career going forward with them because they were making so many management changes. Like my past director was let go, and a whole bunch of those guys that were let go at a certain level, all at the same time. And it's like, oh, am I going to be next? So I was worried a lot about that. And I was sitting home in my home office, like stressing over the fact that I was going to let go. Until one day I thought, you know what? They're not valuing me anymore. So I'm going to ask for a package. I took back the power
I
because
love
I was sitting for a couple of months just wondering what's going on, what's going on, if am I going to be like them or what's going to happen to me. I picked up the phone, I called my director, got a package. And so
you
taking
asked for
back,
what you wanted. I love it.
I
Yeah.
did, and I got more than I thought. I got a full year's income plus my pensions were given to me right away. And I'm like, what? I don't need them yet. I'm not old enough. But we just don't know when we take back that power how much better that feels than someone saying to you, here's your slip, go by.
Yeah.
Because my friends that were let go, my past colleague, who and I had we had a great relationship together, working together, he's still 4 years later, 5 years later, not feeling like he was worthy when they let him go after working for the company for 30 some odd years.
Mm,
I don't have that feeling because I took
yeah.
back the power myself. And it
Uh,
was hard for me to do at first, but then when I made the decision, it was just so easy and it felt so good. So I
oh yeah.
want people to know it's okay because whatever is next is going to show up for you. And then I decided to start my own business because I knew there were a lot of women just like me that have been experiencing things like this. And
Oh,
it
I
takes
love
them
that.
off their game.
I love that. Yeah, I remember quitting one day, and I remember the lady getting mad one day,
Hmm.
coming into my office and just reaming me out. And I said, I looked at her straight in the eye and I just said, do you want my resignation today or January 1st? Because either way, I will never be treated this way ever again in my
There we
entire
go.
life.
Yeah.
And she, like, the stun, like,
Hmm.
what? Like, you're quitting?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. because
Yeah.
I had built an ability, a financial stream, a backup plan, and financial stability for our family that we could walk
Hmm.
away, right?
Yeah.
And so we've heard people on this show that have left with no plan and no job.
Yeah.
Highly do not recommend necessarily. But if it's at that point where you have
Hmm.
to for your stress and for your emotional and mental health,
Yeah.
like you'll be okay, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. So okay, so sorry.
Well, I was also making multiple six figures. So it
Mhm.
wasn't an easy decision to make,
No.
but my heart told me this wasn't the place for me to be anymore. And I
Hmm.
followed my heart and got out of my head.
I love it. Yeah.
Big, big differentiator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Follow your heart out of your head. Okay. I think I need
Mhm.
to write that and put it like bold on a mirror and on a
There we
computer
go.
wallpaper and all the things. I think it's probably saved people like tens of thousands of like
Yeah.
psychology therapy. But now, I mean, you coach women and you
Yeah,
help women. And so what does that look like? I would love to hear more about that so that if they want to connect with you, they can. Like, we'll have your links in the
sure.
comments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so one of the things that I chose to do, and I've been developing it over the last 5 years or so, to a point now where I'm really clear on who I'm working with. And they're women that have been just like me, that have been in those situations like me to have to make a tough decision or have to be faced with a change that they weren't expecting. And how can we shift out of that? Because we take so much on ourselves. We take on the family, right? We take on our relationships, we take on, taking care of all the grandparents and everybody else that needs our support. We take care of the business and we take care of our spouses. And so, in a way, we're pulled in so many different directions. And what I've recognized with a lot of people is they were like me, but couldn't make the decision, couldn't own their own power, can't really understand that it's not just about strategies that we're doing, it's about our mindset and understanding how we can actually accept, like I did when people were telling me I shouldn't have been the director because they were jealous or whatever their reason was. But I believed in myself. And so that power of being in your own skin and understanding your worth and how to also connect back with all of the relationships that, because at this stage of life where people get into their 40s and 50s is when they start divorcing primarily or thinking about it because they haven't even kept their relationship going. And so I can help them bring back to that relationship and actually get it back to where they want it to be because they not only lost in all this stuff that we as women do, lost themselves, but they lost their relationships, right? And oftentimes their girlfriends and things have gone away and done different things. And so they start losing those relationships and we start becoming this silo of who we are when really there's so much more for us to be able to achieve for. So my business is called Sovereign Soul Mastery, and I really help women re-tap into who they truly are and how to do it with ease and grace without having to be nasty to people or, hopefully save a marriage or maybe they need to move, but they just don't know how to do it. There's all sorts of different things like that that I get to do. A lot of it is very mindset focused, but it's really on regaining the beautiful person that they've always been. They just got stuck in a rut, kind of like I did before I asked for my package,
Oh, I love
right?
that. I love that. And I know there's a lot of women that could benefit from you, Sally. And when you mentioned as women how we wear so many different hats,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you look and like, yeah, you know what? I remember one time a guy saying, well, like, like I'm sleeping here and, it was emergent. I was an emergency coordinator for a short term. And
Okay.
the guy was like judging me because I was balancing being a coordinator in a very high stress situation, um, single parenting my child because my
Mm-hmm.
husband was away working. And I remember him being like, what do you mean you're like feeding your kids pizza? And like they were here at the meeting over on the side. And I said,
Yeah.
and he goes, well, I'm giving everything. He's like, I'm sleeping upstairs. And, my wife packed my bag and made my meals. And I'm just
Oh,
here. And I'm
nice.
like, oh, yeah, that's the difference. I'm going home and
Yeah.
washing kids, bathing kids, feeding kids, cleaning a house, maintaining a house,
Yeah.
and trying to catch 2 hours of sleep to then do another
Yeah.
22-hour day, you know? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, there's only one Kate, and Kate wears all the hats, and you
Yeah.
just have to wear one hat.
Yeah.
So, I think there is a balance, and so as women, it's like give yourself grace if you
Mhm.
are stretched thin.
Yes.
It's okay to look at what areas of your life could you simplify.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think, it's like it's not selfish to take time to meet with somebody like Sally. It's not
Yeah.
selfish to take time to look inward and say like what would make you happy, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And what is that nudge that you're like, this would be like dream life,
Mhm.
right? This is what I
Yeah.
want in my life. And I'm willing to go and claim it. So,
Yeah.
any final thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrap up today's episode?
I want you to protect your energy like it's your job
Mm,
because we as women are more sensitive than our male counterparts, I believe. Some are
mm,
really sensitive as well, but I'm just going to generalize it. Um, and we tend to take on everybody else's opinions
mm,
and feel that we have to show up for everybody else before we show up for ourselves.
mm,
So I want you to really protect your energy like it's your job because our
mm,
energy is our frequency and our frequency is what attracts. And
mm,
so for me, my husband's also been one of those people that's been away for even years at a time. He got to go to Aruba for 2 years to work while I was at home in the snow. But, he was always on a different place all the time. And only in the last 5 years did we decide, since I asked for my package, we've traveled together across the country wherever his work needed to be. Right. And so these types of opportunities only come to you when you believe that they're possible.
mm.
Right? It's
I love
your belief in what's possible that can create your future in a way that you would never have imagined before.
it. Mm,
So I'd really like you to give yourself the opportunity to not only just dream, but to do and
mm,
be. Because when you become that new identity of who you are, just like I did in each job that I was in, each career that I was in, I changed identity. Absolutely. I had to become a different person in each of those opportunities, but it was fun and I got to find growth and I got to experience so much more in my life
mm.
that taught me lessons on who I was. And
Oh,
that's what I'd like to leave the
I
listeners with.
love it. I love it. So thank you so much, Sally. For
My
those that are
pleasure.
listening, if this episode hit you a little deeper than expected, I just want you to know we're not broken. Okay, we did not fail at life. We can
No, we
still
did not.
continue. And I think it's high achieving women like ourselves don't need to work harder. We just need to
Mhm.
reconnect with ourselves. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
sometimes reclaiming your life doesn't start with a dramatic change. You don't have to quit your job. Okay. But it does start with that honest question. And what do I want in the next season of life? And so you've given a
Yes.
lot of thought, Sally, for myself included. And, I just want our listeners to know that you are allowed to answer that. And so
Mhm.
thank you, Sally, for helping women realize that they're not alone. Okay.
They are not alone for sure. And I think there's more women today in the business world and in the coaching world that are bringing people closer to be able to support them in the way that only a woman could do.
100%. Yeah. And so those that are wanting more meaning, more peace, or a different pace, it's not selfish, it's awareness.
Yes.
And I definitely want you to connect with Sally if you're like me and like, I need a Sally in my life. All right. Thank you so much, Sally.
Oh, my pleasure,
Um,
Kate. Thank
this is
you.
amazing. Until next episode, friends, signing off.